The bullet with the name of the frontrunner written on it was headed straight towards its target. But the shooter had no idea that his bullet was about to put into motion a chain of events that seemed almost impossible to predict. Here's the story about how the famed American Secret Service bungled Trump's security. Do subscribe, like, share and comment. 20-year-old Thomas Crooks is not your typical unhinged nutcase shooter. This nerdy Pittsburgh resident was exceptionally good at academics and math, but reticent, never mingling much with his classmates. As an engineering sophomore, a second-year student in college, he tried to make the school's rifle team, but ironically was terrible at shooting.
तुमसे ना हो पाएगा.
As many Americans do while studying, he waited tables and washed dishes for $16 a day at a suburban nursing home. But what he really loved was the technical school he attended on weekends, where he learned how to build computers. A hobby he shared with his father, a licensed professional counselor, and the two of them often spent hours together on their interests. And it is from his father, who owned a large collection of more than a dozen firearms, from whom he borrowed the AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and enrolled himself at a shooting range. Something changed inside his mind that October of 2023 as he searched online for symptoms of depression alongside searches for political leaders from both parties and their upcoming events. Planning something big, he ordered packages of fertilizer pellets and radio devices in the past few months, which he would later use to make rudimentary bombs, two of which were found in his vehicle and one at his home. In early July, after Trump's rally was announced in Butler, just an hour away from his home in Pittsburgh on July 13, he narrowed his searches down to Trump and Googled for past assassinations of US presidents. Then, he typed in a horrifying phrase: how far away was Oswald from Kennedy? For the record, he was 80 meters away when he fired that fatal bullet in 1963. His mind made up, he registered for the rally and did a recce of the Butler Farm Show grounds on July 7th, a day before the Secret Service and local law enforcement officers did, selecting the adjacent warehouse rooftop as his preferred spot. Surprisingly, the Secret Service deemed the warehouse rooftop unimportant and did not include it as part of their inner security perimeter, which the Secret Service chief later justified.
The complex had sloped roofs and it was risky for agents to stand there.
They completed the final walkthrough with only limited personnel on July 11, as much of the staff were busy with several heat-related emergencies. On July 12th, Crooks spent hours at the range practicing shooting with his AR-15 rifle, perfecting his skills so much that he would have aced his sophomore team. Meanwhile, on the fatal day, not one Secret Service officer attended the 9 a.m. security briefing, though local law enforcement officers were there in full force. At exactly the same time that morning, Crooks was purchasing a ladder at Home Depot. An hour later, he drove to the empty rally venue and recce'd the location for another 70 minutes, even as local counter-snipers were still arriving. Then, Crooks drove back to his hometown and bought 50 rounds of ammunition. Carrying his gun, 2 rudimentary bombs, a drone and a ladder in his Hyundai Sonata, he returned to the warehouse near the rally at 3:35 p.m. And just 15 minutes later, the geek audaciously flew his drone as close as 200 yards from Trump's podium for a full 11 minutes, but remained undetected as the Secret Service were busy refusing use of the survey drones offered by local law enforcement, even though their own drone detection system was still being set up, and which became operational only much later at 5 p.m., barely an hour before Trump was to walk in. After Crooks reined in his drone and waited for the event to start, a local police officer spotted him for the first time around 4:30 p.m. as he casually sat at a picnic table near the warehouse. Finding him suspicious, the officer took his photograph and forwarded it to his colleagues. But the problem was that local police and the Secret Service were not in sync, communicating on different platforms, so the warning fell between the cracks. Worse, there were no Secret Service agents inside a command post set up by local police ahead of the July 13th rally. All these missteps allowed Crooks easy access to the warehouse area, even while carrying a ladder and an assault rifle, while everyone else had to go through security to enter the rally venue. Crooks could have been apprehended once again an hour later when police officers spotted an unidentified person surveying the area with a rangefinder. One of them took photos of him at 5:38 p.m. and relayed them to the Secret Service, who didn't respond, and it's now clear why not. However, one of the two local police counter-snipers, separate from the Secret Service snipers, ran out to look for him, but he was nowhere to be seen now. By 6 p.m., an agile Crooks had discarded his ladder and climbed onto the low-slung warehouse building number 6, closest to the stage, from where he could have the best shot at Trump. Minutes later at 6:03 p.m., Donald Trump walked on stage as his supporters cheered. Around the same time, at least a dozen rally-goers noticed a young man crawling on the sloped warehouse roof. Who the hell is that? Secret Service counter-snipers heard the commotion and saw their outstretched fingers pointing to the warehouse roof. But from the position they were at, the peak of that warehouse roof was blocking their line of sight. Meanwhile, two traffic officers stationed near the warehouse also joined the hunt for the suspicious man. One of them jumped on the shoulders of his colleague and peered onto the roof. Seeing a man aiming an AR-15 rifle directly at the podium where Trump was, the shooter turned and their eyes locked. Crooks quickly swirled his rifle around and took aim at the officer, who tried backing away only to lose his balance and fall to the ground, knocking over the other officer as well. But he still kept his nerve and radioed his team. Man with gun, long gun, on warehouse roof. But this radio message once again never reached the Secret Service. Now more rally attendees saw the gunman. That dude on the roof, he's got a gun. Meanwhile, Trump was talking about his favorite subject, illegal immigration, totally unaware that he was in the crosshairs of an assassin. Yet, in those 2 minutes, the Secret Service neither took Trump off stage, nor could they spot or shoot the intruder. Knowing his position was revealed, Crooks took his shot. The bullet was bang on target and headed straight into Trump's head. But at that very moment, Trump turned his head ever so slightly upwards to look at the screen displaying immigration statistics under Biden. The bullet missed, only grazing Trump's right ear. Seeing he missed, Crooks tried again, but by this time, Donald had ducked. The projectiles did kill though. A firefighter in the crowd lost his life and 2 others were injured. By this time, one of the Secret Service snipers on the left roof behind Trump finally got sight of the threat and neutralized him. What motivated Crooks to want to kill Trump is still not clear. The young man didn't have any strong political orientation toward either Republicans or Democrats. He was a registered Republican but had also donated $15 to a progressive cause on the day of Biden's inauguration in Jan 2021. Probably he was just enamored by guns. The t-shirt he wore on the day of the shooting was from a gun-themed YouTube channel popular among gun tubers. Will Trump's injured ear finally listen to the demands for stricter gun control rules in the US? At first, the incident seemed to have mellowed Trump, but with him trailing in the polls, that opportunity too seems to have been missed. Bisbo's limerick. Before the bullet, he was a front-runner president, but all that changed with the events he underwent. The bullet missed, his ear it kissed, and now he's battling a rejuvenated opponent. You will also find these sources listed in our video description section.